Hey, everybody. We're here alive and thrive in Toronto, home of Blue Jays, Raptors, Maple Leafs, and Canadian psychic Robert Lindsy Milne. That's me. Welcome to my side of the crystal ball. And Happy New Year. And wishing you the greatest year that 2023 can bring to all of you. And speaking of 2023 bringing a special time or an exciting time, I am doing something very shortly that I haven't done in more than 20 years. With some excitement, encouragement, and a whole lot of support from Michelle and Kayla, we are in the process of completing Robert Lindsy Milne's psychic class. It's going to be a four episode program. We'll meet every week, a couple hours, and we're going to be learning about being psychic the way Robert Lindsy Milne is. And there's going to be a whole lot more information released on about it in the next while. But you know, you can check out more on my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. You can register there too, and we're only going to have a limited amount of seats. So just log in as quickly as you can. I'd love to see you there. 2022 has been an amazing era, amazing time for me. I appeared on more podcasts in 2022 than I ever imagined that I could or would. During the month of December of this year, of last year, I accomplished one of my greatest dreams and goals. I appeared on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. I had dreamed and focused and believed and put all my energy and belief into it, and happened on December the 1st. It's been a dream year. It was a dream year. And as we're going into 2023, it is also looking even more promising with all the readings and more shows, more my side of the crystal ball, and my psychic class. So just keep on checking back for more information. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Please make a comment. Tell me if you have any ideas you would like for the show or opinions. And once again, if you comment one, I promise I'll get back to you. I'll re-comment you. And the other thing is that if you do make a comment, you're adding, helping us get again more and more recognition. And then, of course, please like. So now you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, UK Paranormal Radio, iHeart, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I can't believe all the places, Instagram, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. And now, after all of this, this is my version this week of WWRS. I put a lot of thought into tonight's WWRS. I was wondering what I really wanted to share and express. 2023 is going to be a good year. 2023 is going to be a year of accomplishment, achievement. They will be very, very expensive accomplishments and achievements, but achievements nonetheless. And as we just are starting this new year, 2023, I would like to share with you the living philosophy of the Evergreens. Who are the Evergreens, you say? Well, back in the 1970s, about 1974, 1975, There was the New Age Center, Mind Awareness in Toronto, and we young, inspiring New Agers helping bring in the New Age and making it mainstream as it has become today. So as we were in that process, there was this one fellow at Mind Awareness, the New Age Center, named Michael Blake Reed. And Michael had the most amazing ability. He would go into trance and channel through a group of entities, a collective group of perfected entities called the Evergreens. And in a sleep state, Michael would share from the Evergreens amazing things. And Michael was on the level, the information was on the level with Edgar Cayce. There's about 12,000 hours recorded of the Evergreens speaking through Michael. It is in the process of being digitized and being released. The Evergreens gave us the living philosophy, and I would like to share that with you at the beginning of this year. I am the result of me. I am more. I am never less. I discover newness about me each and every day. I act because inaction is decay. I speak because the words need to be said. I am the right person. I have no enemies, only friends I've yet to make. I have no masters but myself. I surround myself in eternity. Eternity I command. I exist in now, the past, the present, and the future. I have no limits, no bounds, no ends. And that's what Robert has to say. My guest on my side of the crystal ball, first one of the year, is Meredith Herrenbruck. Meredith is an NLP, neuralistic programmer therapist. She studies and practices Huna healing, and as well as Family Soul Constellation therapy as well. From a psychic intuitive background, a fabulous education, a degree in NLP, as well as a lot of other distinctions, including being the author of Becoming Ridiculously Awesome. Who doesn't want that? And you can find that on Amazon and several other locations as well. So we recorded this interview back in mid-December, but I just had to save it for the first one of the year because it's so positive, so experiential, and Meredith's message is a very special, positive message. So let's just hear what she has to say. Well, I am so excited. I've been thinking about you coming on the show ever since Michelle contacted me. Reading your biography was just fascinating. Where did you discover, and when did you discover you could sense and feel and understand people in their behavior and actions? And when did you learn that?
Wow. Well, I learned it when I was really young because...
You know what? Excuse me. You still are really young.
Well, thank you. Younger. Thank you, sir. I really, I had to learn it at a really young age because my mom was and is difficult. And people who are empaths, I read a lot about this, is that you tend to survive, a constant moving target, not knowing when someone is going to be one way versus another, you become hyper aware and hypersensitive to all moods and so forth. And so I learned that at a very young age. When I became conscious of tracking, like how much I tracked other people, was really in my 30s. And even in my 40s, I'm learning more and more every day with social media and so much information. But it was really probably when I really became conscious of where and when I learned to do it was a few years ago when I was taking another NLP course. And it was, yes, neuro-linguistic programming. And when I took that course for myself specifically, and the title was Beyond Blame and Shame, and I go, oh yeah, I felt a lot of that growing up. And then there was this, within the first hour, I realized I'm like, oh, we're talking about narcissistic parents. We're talking about borderline personality disorder. And then I go, wait a minute, we have a label for it? And the more I learned about how often I had to shift and acquiesce and think and manage and hyper create some sort of stability within myself, I go, oh my God, I've been reactive and empathic to survive growing up.
Are you aware that some of the greatest readers of facial expressions are those that have been abused and traumatized the most?
I would not be surprised at all.
Yes.
Yes.
We see things, micro expressions.
Yes.
And because people that we survive by seeing that look in an eye or a movement. That's how we survived and made it to adulthood.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the first way of being psychic, by the way.
I think it is.
Becoming aware of what's obvious.
Yes. I agree with you. Yeah.
So become aware of what's obvious. Look at what's in front of you. And when you become aware of what's obvious, then more becomes obvious.
Very true.
Okay.
Yes.
Then it expands. So you were doing that when you were a kid. That's how come you made it so well in the world.
I guess so. Well, you have to, right? You have to figure it out. And it's all these micro belief systems and experiences that you have that end up creating your filters. And I mean, I love my parents, but they were really tough. And my mom, for example, why I became so hyper aware, and I love her like crazy, but she drives me nuts, is because if I got in trouble, say 9 a.m, she would say, wait till your father came home.
Oh, that's torture.
It was torture. And he would come home around 6 or 6:30 or whenever for dinner and so forth. It was a horrifying day. And I would just be literally apoplectic. And I'd be so nervous and so scared. And then what happens in a borderline personality relationship, and hers was like, there are 4 archetypes for one of the spouses. For the main person has borderline personality disorder, is she's there's the queen, where you don't compete with the queen. She is always number 1. Yeah. Then you have the witch, who's, I think, not nicely named or appropriately named, but like the horrible, evil,
just a
mean
different
person.
Letter at the front.
Yeah, fair enough. Right. And then there's the hermit, and then there's the waif. And the waif where, life is too hard, I can't handle it, and so forth. And so then there are the countering archetypes of those who marry those sorts of women who have certain archetypes, which my mom had all 4. And it was the huntsman. And the huntsman's basically, I am the caregiver. I will go out and hunt for you, and I will, slay all the beasts and so forth. And I will, come back to you. and take care of you. And so when he would come home, well, he had a long, hard day, and then he had to take care of her moods and her needs. And so then he got hyper angry, and he had to compensate for that as well. So it was a double whammy, which was very unfortunate. So that's the
And
long
this is
backstory.
how you were raised?
Yes.
Wow.
So I was
And
just always petrified, honestly. And I didn't write this in the book because I learned this, only probably 2-3 years ago. But
being
it
afraid all the
answered
time.
so much. And that's empaths, again, having to be
Wow.
aware.
Yes.
And then when you're aware of not just the facial expressions, but you're aware of the energies.
Yes.
Maybe certain people can see light, or auras and that sort of thing, which is real. It is
Which are you?
scientific. Well, let's see. I'm sometimes clairaudient. Sometimes I'm more kinesthetic.
So
I feel
clairaudient
things.
would mean you hear.
Yes,
Okay.
sometimes I do hear things. Sometimes I see light coming out of
Where do
walls
you
and
hear it?
things.
Because it doesn't come in your ears. Where does it happen that you hear it?
My
Where?
head.
Okay.
Somewhere in my head.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, for example, when I was
Yes.
studying Huna, this really cool story
I can hardly wait.
is, so I'd been studying with my teacher, Mark Saito, in Hawaii, and around, we would do long weekends with the class, maybe 6 students, and doing 3 or 4 days of working with people. And then he would give lectures and so forth. So at the end of the few years, we, those who wanted to carry through and he felt were ready for it, we went to Hawaii for a week and went all over the place, 2 to 4 in the morning. And when everything was quiet, and we would pick up on information. And the 2 other students really didn't pick up on much. But I could see pictures, I could see scenes in my head. And so there are 2 stories I want to share with you. One of which was, we were at this old heiau, which was a sacred space. And all of them had different purposes and uses and so forth. And it was a park. There was like park bench and tables and stuff. And then there was this stone platform, which probably had a home and all that. And so we went to the heiau part, the stone part, and I didn't feel anything. I'm like, okay, nothing. And it was just, I didn't get pictures. I didn't get feelings. I didn't get fear. And then we kept going back. Then we kind of chatted, and we were sitting at the picnic benches, and my heart just was racing. And I was like, oh my God, it was 3:30 in the morning. And I'm like, all right, I am feeling something here. Let me see what I see. And I closed my eyes, and I got this whole rolling picture of a man being bent backwards over a stone, being sliced across the neck, and his soul being sucked up by the man above him, and then breathed into a skull.
Were you conscious or
Yes, I was
dreaming?
wide awake like
And
this.
you just
Saw the whole thing.
So was it like watching it in a movie, or were you seeing it and the people were like diaphanous, like?
Oh, no, it felt like a dream. So I was seeing it
Okay.
in my head.
Okay.
And I just go, okay.
So you're clairvoyant too.
Yes.
Okay.
And so then I'm seeing this, I go, I'm making this stuff up. I mean, I love the idea of being psychic. I'm making this stuff up. And so then I go back to my teacher, and he's amazingly psychic. I mean, his story is, it's just incredible. And so I go, and this happened. He's like, yep. And this happened. Yep. I mean, he knows, because his ancestors tell him, and they relay. And there's like this whole thing that he's connected to more than I am. And anyway, so I said, but what about, like, why did he do this? Why was the man's throat slit and this and that? And he goes, well, there's certain kahuna who would breathe in the spirits of people and put them in skulls so they can do their bidding, and they would feed them alcohol to keep them there. And then he would say, you know, sometimes even now in Hawaii, there are fireballs that will go across the sky. And these are these spirits that are being sent across back and forth to take care of business, whatever that is. Two people are not happy with each other, whatever. And so if it's a 1 fireball night, be aware. But if it's a 2 fireball night, everyone goes inside. And I confirmed with someone else who I met, who is Hawaiian. And I said, okay, is this really? I mean, people maybe fantasize, or it sounds like a good story. And he goes, oh no, that's actually really true. And I go, really? And he says, yes, that is actually true. So, but anyway, the imagery, the history that I got apparently is accurate. That imagery that did originally happen a long time ago. So what I was, I think, seeing was what's called an echo. It was like an imprint on that space, and I was able to understand and tap into that information.
On an imprint on that rock, or
on that rock in that area. I mean, I felt it when I got closer to the picnic benches, specifically that rock. I mean, my whole system got haywire. Yeah.
So if something has happened on a rock or a tree or in a house, or jewelry on somebody's hand
Yes.
or body, the energy of that person, or if there's any good, negative, or positive energy what would happen if you acquired something like that from?
Well, to go
Like
back
a piece of jewelry.
Right. I mean, here's the thing is,
Okay.
from what I understand and have experienced personally, because I do clear homes, I do clear properties, I do clear people, and I do clear objects. Anything and everything can have or has energy attached to it. There's a whole spectrum of types of energy that we can impart on something. And it could be, imagine a kitchen where it had multiple fights from one family, and then they maybe get divorced. And this actually happened to a person I worked with, where she had a horrible experience with her husband. I mean, where she almost died. And she goes, all right, we're divorced now. I would like to have a happy home now and clear everything, because I have so many horrible memories and it just doesn't feel right. And so then I talked to her about, I said, okay, well, what were the people like before? Oh, well, they got married and they lived here for a few years, and then they had horrible fights and divorced. And I go, oh, interesting. And I just felt in my body, I'm like, there's something here. And then I said, do you know anything about the previous people? Same story. And I go, I kind of rolled my eyes because I'd done this enough. And I go, okay, well, do you realize that this home has energy, has these echoes or whatever is happening, that you guys lived in this space, that you were influenced by it somehow? And that maybe you, and also I didn't tell her this, but maybe they, when they found the home to buy, that maybe because of their already, their existing conditions and dynamics between each other, that they subconsciously chose that house to ride that energy up, right? So there are a lot of things at play, but there are patterns that can happen in houses. There's negative energies. What's that?
I lived in a house like that. 3 people in a row that owned the place. I was the last one. The relationship broke up within 1 year of moving into the house.
Yeah.
And that happened 3 different times. I was the 3rd one.
Right. So how that can happen is from a few different sources. One is just old patterns. Of the first one, it's just big enough that it's kind of like layers of paint. It shifts the vibrations. And if that's the predominant experience in that home or that location, well, then that's kind of what's going to vibrate there. And people will respond to it, and either love it or hate it or whatever. Then there can be, if there's a negative energy of that, well, then sometimes entities can come in and go, oh, this feels good. And entities, meaning, if you want to call it demons, I don't really like to put labels on it, but let's say really negative energies out there who like to connect with that sort of energy. And you know, as many personalities there are in the world of humans, past, present, future, there are probably 20 million times that in energies, there's millions of kinds of personalities and wants and desires and everything else. So I don't want to get into labels because I think that it narrows the possibility for change and growth. And so when you just try and meet it neutrally, I think that's more useful. Okay, so then there's kind of the original imprints. Then there's the entities that can attach, and it can kind of snowball, right? And then maybe someone dies in the house and doesn't want to leave. Their body is dead, gone, but the soul says, I don't want to leave, right? So you can have compounding layers, and then you can have the earth's energetics as well. If the, you know, water, air, fire, metal, all the elements are out of balance, maybe that's compounding it. I recently worked with someone this summer who apparently had an elemental on his property. And I'd never heard of an elemental before, but it was an elemental that was attached to a tree and just caused a whole host of problems. And so I don't know.
Onward?
Yes, there was a being called an elemental, lived connected with this tree and was kind of ended up having a contract with the person who put him there. And the elemental. Okay. And so then that gets into contracts. So here's what ends up happening, why we get into a little pickle, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, soulfully, is we will go along life and we'll interact with people, places, and things. And we start to have beliefs about ourselves in the world, beliefs about others, and so forth. And sometimes we enter into contracts, not just about property, but about other things as well. And sometimes there are contracts where maybe there are a bunch of beings. They say, oh, there's an entity here, there's a soul here. We want to praise you. We want to love you. We think you're amazing. Please stay. Right. And then that's where deities kind of sometimes get formed.
I'm sorry, what gets
deities, I think. Yes. If you look at Greek mythology, you have gods. What if it's just a being that was elevated into a particular station, if you will, but it was created in a way, like a deity was created, like it was a being that had certain characteristics, and then you have a bunch of people in tune with that, and then maybe they become a god or a deity and so forth. So what I'm saying is that there are the contracts between people, places, and things. And if you don't know, or you've forgotten you had a contract, then this elemental was kind of chained to this area. Okay. And I said, and I was, unfortunately, I didn't continue on with the work. He had already had someone in place, and I'm like, okay, I'm happy to help where I can. But the thing was, I said, all you need to do is have a conversation. And this is what I do with any entity that I notice with people or buildings. I don't go in and say, hey, you got to scram and you got to get out of here. That's one, it's rude. It's disrespectful. You don't know what's going on. And for you to think you know everything is a really bad idea, because you could make them mad. I did that once on my first one.
Oh yeah, what
Oh
what
yeah.
happened
Oh
when you
yeah.
got the boogeyman mad? It's like
Yeah.
pissing off the witch doctor.
Kind
You
of.
know?
It was kind of like, oops,
Yeah,
rookie mistake.
yeah. I bet
And
she
so,
only
and
made it once.
only once, and it was such a
Yeah.
valuable lesson. And I go, so I was on a retreat with a roommate, and we were in this kind of apartment, and it just felt so uncomfortable. And my skin would prickle in the back room, and I'm like, I didn't like it. And so out of the corner of my eye, I see some movement and I see something. And I said, hey, did you go into the front room? And she says, no, I'm sitting on my bed. I go, okay, maybe it's nothing. And so, but she was a photographer and she snapped a photo of the room. It was dark. There was one light source with a lampshade on it. I tell you that because a lot of people who think that an orb is often because of lens flare. The sun's refracting through the lens, or there are pin lights and so forth and so on. So there was no direct light source on anything. Okay. And there were 5 orbs that showed up in the photo. And I go, oh, maybe orbs are real. Okay. And so I said, well, would you like me to clear the room? And she says, yes. And I said, great. So I kind of puffed myself up and I said, I'm going to clear the room. And the air pressure in the room instantly changed. And the corner of the room in a male voice yelled, no.
Oops.
And I looked at my friend and I said, did you hear that? And she says, yes, I did. I go, oh my God. And so I just took a breath and I go, oh, I misstepped. He's been here a lot longer than I have. And who am I to come into his house? And I go, okay. So I got a little humility and I got a little bit of respect and I go, okay. So I sat down, I said, and I just started having a conversation. And I said, here's where I am now. It's the year 2016 or whatever year it was. It was earlier than that. No, it's 2008. And, and so forth and so on. I said, so I'm noticing these things, noticing these orbs. Can you send me images on what's going on? What happened? How did you get to be this way? And I got, again, like a full imagery of like a movie in my head on what happened. And so
like scene after scene.
yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And I go, all right, so there are 5 orbs here. And I go, I'm feeling there are 2 parents here. And sometimes I can see who they are. I'm like, I know you're male. I know you're female. Obviously, I know you're male because you've got a male voice and you felt, there was the male energy coming out. Okay. So there are these 2 little ones in the corner. I said, they're your children, aren't they? And they said, yes. And basically what I got was there was a big battle on that land long ago. And this was Southern California. And I said, and everyone is basically looking for each other. And I go, I don't know why you're not able to see each other because you're in the same space. So then maybe we get into, well, maybe they're just on different dimensions or planes or something, or awareness. I'm not quite sure. But I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an angel who I work with, and I'm going to see if she can get you to the right place.
And that angel is on another level. It's not a physical person that's an angel. Okay.
No,
good.
it is a being that I feel,
right.
sometimes I hear. Okay. And I was just starting to work with her. And I'm like, and again, I'm thinking, yep, I'm making this up. I'm insane. But again, people I've worked with, clients I'm working with, they are noticing a difference. They are noticing change. They're seeing lights like I am, etc. So I go, I just have to trust this. So we had a conversation, and then over time, they faded away. Their energy just was not felt anymore. And so my friend and I were like, oh my God, if we'd had a bottle of wine, we probably would have had it. And we went into the front room, and 2 hours later, we finally fell asleep. But my request was to my angel was, when they're there, wherever they need to go, can you let me know? And it was a simple request. In my head, I'm like, can you let me know? All telepathic. And so then I said, okay, again, I'm making this up because I just finished learning all of this. It's hard. It's a big world to believe that all this really exists. Anyway, so I finally fall asleep, and some point in the middle of the night, I woke up and I heard in my head, they're okay. And I go, really? I'm not just making this up in my head. And there's a giggle. Yes, relax. Yes, they're fine. They're fine. And the room and the whole apartment felt different after that. We put some crystals out there and said some prayers to kind of neutralize and the energy and everything else. But that was my first kind of official clearing. And I was smacked down kind of emotionally. And they're like, yeah, not in our house. And I go, got it. And so that's what I do with everyone I work with is I need to respect where they're coming from. I don't know their story.
Whether they're on the physical plane, whether they're on other planes.
Absolutely.
That's wow. Okay, so that's called acceptance.
Yes. Yes. Because if you put your filters on something, you're going to miss out on a whole bunch of information and compassion and a whole host of stuff that I think makes the world connect and elevate.
When you're doing your therapy, your counseling, and you can call it, I'm sure you might call it a different name, but it was the same. And tell me what it is if it's a different name. How does that work? What you've been talking about go with dealing with people in trauma, and issues like that? How do they work together?
Well, I'll tell you how they work together is when you're talking about acceptance.
Okay. Yep.
That's also acknowledging when we experience trauma, and I had trauma myself growing up.
Excuse me, I have to ask this. When you say I had, are you saying that you are cured from the effects of it, or is that you had the experience of being traumatized?
Both. And thank you for that question. I did have trauma, an experience when I was little, and then you could probably call it PTSD for many years. I would say I'm probably 99% cured of it. Like, I don't ruminate. I don't dream of it anymore. I have a husband. I have 2 kids. I'm not in apoplectic fear all the time. Of course,
but you were as a child. But you were as a child in apoplectic fear. Is that the word?
Apoplectic. Totally fearful. And just, I was fearful of any sort of relating with someone, like who could I trust? There's a lot of trust issues that I developed, and a lot of, I would have bad dreams, nightmares all the time from 16 on when I remembered, and so forth. And so when I finally found NLP, which is why I do this all the time, why I went into this work from architecture, and I did, I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and I did architecture for many years. I still love it, and I still dabble.
So you're redesigning minds and behaviors.
Yes. It's how do you fill your space? How do you find comfort? How do you move in your space with ease?
Yeah.
So it took me a long time, though, to finally understand the correlation. I go, oh, well, those are physical spaces. These are emotional spaces. Right? Move the chair out of the middle of the room and put it in the corner and open the window.
Same concept, different details, but same concept.
It is. So I would say cured because I don't ruminate. I don't stress the same way at all. Sure, some things will come up and I go, oh, but I notice it. But a lot of getting back to trauma and how one starts and how it all relates is like working with that gentleman in the corner of the room is, I see you. I acknowledge that you're there. I acknowledge that there is stress. I acknowledge that there is a trauma. Let's look at that and have someone to be able to be present enough, masterful enough, and to be able to hold that space, to trust, for you to be able to see it yourself. We hide things from ourselves. We're scared to see it. It's going to be, I'm going to cry too much. I'm going to die if I cry. I'm going to die if I see it. And when you have someone, and that's why I think I am very good at what I do, is because I've been through something similar.
I use the same thing. I say it the same way.
That I can hold that space.
Right.
I've been through the trenches. I know a lot of what you may or may have not gone through and are going through, and I can hold that space. And hey, I've dealt with demons and I can't even see them. And so I can handle your stuff and sit there and be with you while you are freaking out and finally seeing it for the first time. And I know you're going to be okay.
And in that therapy, NLG, or sorry, NLP, sorry. Do you use, so in my work, I'm really big on making sure that we say what we mean and mean what we say. So when someone says, oh, I can't do this, and I say, well, actually you can. So instead of saying I can't, say I won't. And all of a sudden, power changes. And I kind of come down on, not really come down, but I challenge my clients when I say, you know, how are you today? And they say, oh, not bad. And I say, well, that's not what I asked. I don't care what you're not. I was asking how you are. And I really, it's really important to say what you mean and mean what you say. And then you don't have to use a lot of fancy words, and you don't have to use a lot of words, just being straightforward. And that's part of how I do work with my clients too.
Absolutely. And I think what I'm looking ahead and how and why you're doing that. And I think it's brilliant because you are, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, teaching that person that they have personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
In their actions and their choices.
Absolutely.
And we've been taught, many people have been taught when we're little, to not be powerful, to just acquiesce and so forth. It is easier for the parents. So I see both sides. I'm a parent now, and it is really hard. There are times where I'm kind of the big bad wolf and I'm like, okay, that's a pattern I don't like. But then other times I come back and I go, that was not the best thing to have said. I would have liked to have said this. And I reconcile and I go, all right, I'm working on this. But I do try to say, and I do often say, you have power of choice to what to believe and what to think and action. And it's a double-edged sword, right? You have power. That's great news. Shoot, you have power. That means I'm responsible. And sometimes that's hard, but once you start to get comfortable with that in the smallest of things, of opening mail versus not opening mail, opening the door, not opening the door, selecting your coffee or a tea or whatever, like when you start to go, but I'm
the same.
Right. And then, but when you can go, but I do have choice, I do have power, then you can create the world as you want it and not be stuck in the shackles of your past and so forth. And that's just the beginning moments of working with someone as like, but you do have power. So let's look at where you gave it away. Why did you give it away? And who did you give it to? And do you have to anymore? Can you take it back?
How do your clients find you?
They find me on beautiful podcasts such as your own.
Yes.
Do
you make predictions? Do you see the future?
No. For myself, sometimes as I do have premonitions for myself when there's kind of a big thing that I know that's going to happen. But I haven't done it for other people. What I do offer, because I don't want to, again, put my filters on them.
If we were in a session, I would
Okay.
say, well, that's what you don't want. I would like to hear what you do want.
Exactly. And NLP does that. What we do.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's get into what NLP does.
Okay.
NLP is short for neuro-linguistic programming. Yep. It helps repattern your brain.
Yes.
Through your thoughts, behaviors, and feelings.
Yes.
And we go, well, this is how the brain works, is when you're little, you're growing up, you're learning what works and what doesn't work. If you survive well enough, and then you go, great, I'm going to file it away and use it again. Mm-hmm. For our relationships, who are going to choose to get married to and keep dating just that right person to make you feel badly about yourself.
You bet.
And then you go until you're done in your like 30s or 40s and maybe divorced 5 times. And you go, well, why? It's the rest of the world. And then I go, all right, well, so we'll sit down and we go, well, what would you like? And then if they talk in the negative, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. That's great. What do you want?
See,
what
I'm
would
not
be
as
better
nice as
than
you.
that?
I say, I don't care what you don't want. I don't care. I'm not interested in that.
So, yes, if I have built enough rapport, then yes, I'll start needling them in a humored way. I am gentle. My husband's a lot more direct, like you are. But again, if I'm dealing with someone who's never made that step before and doesn't know it's safe, I like to be a lot gentler. But I go, but what do you want? How would you be thinking, feeling, and doing in maybe next week, next month, maybe tomorrow? And you make that forward picture in the right side of your brain. Okay, and that's important because our eyes and our brain are all connected. So where they're looking, let's look to the right. And so then we create that and then we go, well, then what stops you? And I just pause.
Oh, right.
What stops you? It's not what's happening. Why isn't that happening for you? That's a passive stance. What stops you from creating it is the real question. And you go, oh, well, because embedded in that is that you have choice, that you are a creator of your world. Yeah. Oh, subtle shift, but a very important one. So when I say what stops you, they'll look in a certain location. Okay.
With their eyes.
With their eyes. And I'll go, great. Follow my finger and put your eyes right back there. What's going on for you? And what happens is, and often they go, I'm staring at the wall. Nothing. I'm staring at whatever. And then I go, okay, fine. I know better. They don't yet. But what happens is, sure enough, after a second or two, they'll go, I had this memory. I go, oh, really? And they go, yeah, so when I was little, my dad said this or this happened, blah, blah, blah. Now, what happens is when you hold a person's eyes into the location of when you ask them what stops them, that is what stops them. It's that memory, that is that survival set of skills that is keeping them in that pattern and preventing them from getting what they want. So when now we found the imprint, we found that original source. Beautiful. Then we jump into that source and we go, well, what's he believing about himself in the world? How did he get there? What's he believing? What's going on? And we unpack it. And then we go, well, what do you want to think now? What do you want to offer that younger self? And what you do is then you offer new resources and you rewrite your neurology. We don't rewrite the experience, so to speak, or like the event. We rewrite your association that you specifically are allowing. It's not what I want. Doesn't matter what I want. It is, what do you want to impart on that little one who is hurt and traumatized and saddened or shamed? And when you bring that new knowledge that you are finding your own resources for, and sometimes we go, well, you don't have the resources because you're saying you don't, but who do you know who you respect does have those resources? Oh, well, I don't know, maybe it's Oprah, or maybe it's whoever, Colin Powell, or the president of the United States, or my neighbor next door. God, was always such a smart person. Well, what do they feel about it? What would they feel about it? Well, this, and this. Great, load that up. Then when you load up that experience, let's jump into that youngest version of you who's already having this horrible experience, and let's breathe that in with that new knowledge, toes in his toe slots, fingers in his finger slots, and just breathe that in. And what you're doing is that neurology that is firing up right now is the neurology of the trauma from long ago and far away. It's the same neurology. The same cells are firing, the same synapses. So when you install new information, you're changing the patterning.
Yes.
So then as you slowly rewrite, now your body and brain are able to access new resources. And now we'll start to feel safer getting that thing that they've never been able to get before. They've always wanted it, but there have been all these, I want it, but it's not safe enough. I want it, but I don't deserve it. I want it, or my parents will shame me, or whatever it is. But now it's all been shifted and changed internally such that you're accessing new resources. And so now you're running on a new program. And then after the session, or a few sessions happen, it doesn't take long. Like, I can change a phobia in 45 minutes, and I'm not joking. That over time...
Can you tell me more about that one?
I will in one moment. But over time, what happens is the neurology, because it feels safe, it goes, oh, this is better. I like this. It starts firing that new neurology. And then over time, you don't have to do homework. You end up on the new tracks, and the new synapses are firing. And then the brain, if it's not using those old tracks, it'll just slowly erase it. And it will soften, and it just kind of goes away. The brain is always cleaning up what it no longer uses, right? Which is why they say you should always be using your words and using that, because you got to use it or lose it. Right. And so that's why my trauma, the first month or two after it, yes, it was still pretty heightened, but over a year or two, and I'd done sessions, it's not at all in the forefront. It's more of, yes, it's a memory. There are no big triggers anymore at all. And so it's the same with phobias. Anything that's a trauma or a phobia, PTSD, CPTSD, which is, chronic PTSD, like where PTSD has been endured over time, like in marriages or, parental experience, for years and years.
Right.
Okay. That it's been my experience. It does not matter how long the trauma has been there or been replayed. It doesn't. It matters on what resources we can offer that you already have within you, and making the change.
The concept that I explain is we kill the root of the trauma, and then the rest takes care of itself. So you heal the original injury, the original hurt.
Yes.
And then okay, that's also how I work too.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, and why I really, really, really love NLP and Family Soul Constellations and Huna work is because it finds the root in different locations versus traditional therapies that stay in story and are just the current experience. We're not getting to the root of it at all.
Right.
And I've worked with people where their root is in a past life. I've worked where the root is attached to an entity that's creating a whole lot of chaos. And so And so that's a little bit, off the beaten track, but I'll tell you from my personal experience and working with so many clients, I just go, I've been down this road for so long. I just go, how can people not understand that this is a better way? And that past lives are maybe possible, and all this is happening. Because here's my thing. And when I was in my 20s, like teens and 20s, I was still working a whole lot out. And I just go, and I was actually really close to ending my life. I mean, I thought
Really?
about it, I'm like,
Literally? Oh,
literally. Like,
that
let's be
close?
honest.
I'm
Well,
so glad you didn't.
Well, thank you. But here's the thing, because logic stepped in.
Because
As
there's
we
a
talked
lot
earlier,
of people
logic.
alive.
It
Because
does.
a lot of people are alive because you stayed alive.
Well, thank you. Thank
Think
you.
about that.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't feel that way anymore at all. I don't, but it was a moment where I go, I don't know any other option. But then here's what the kicker. And this is why I say it. And I feel it's important to say is because, well, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that, or somehow the soul is not just this experience, because then I kept pondering, I kept puzzling, I go, why are we working so hard for all these things or these experiences or this and this and this, if we're just going to be in the ground? I go, that just logically for me, if I was going to put on my Einstein cap, I go, that makes absolutely no sense to work so hard and strive so hard. Why not just find a little hut and kind of just survive and hang out, and then we're done? So I guess, so this passion, this drive, this stuff, there's got to be a reason for it. So then I go, well, I believe in reincarnation. So then when I was at the end of my line and I go, should I, shouldn't I? And not really, but it was probably 3/4 of the way there. I was pondering deeply. And the thing is, everyone, and I have to say, a lot of people freak out when I say that. But again, I told you, I can go to the nth degree with someone. If someone says, hey, I want to end my life, I'll go, okay, let's analyze it. Buckminster Fuller did this. He was going to end his life, and then he started counting. He started counting things, pencils and things, and it was very interesting. But he started finally falling in love with the universe in a different way. But I said, yeah, what if? It's okay to ask the question. A lot of people go, I don't want to know. I don't want to know my trauma. I just want to feel better. Give me a pill. Well, let's look at death. What's so crazy about death? I've never actually talked about this with anyone before. But what's so crazy about it? Well, it's a transition. The body goes. But for me, with all this experience of entities and souls and this and that, I just go, all right, well, it's a transition point. So if I don't deal with my stuff now and my body's gone, are my problems gone? No. And I go, shit. I better deal with it now. Then I better get on the horn and just deal. Why not now? It might be scary. It might suck. Maybe I'll need, some help in some other ways. But hey, no time like the present, I guess, is correct. Do it now, because it will be waiting for you tomorrow. Until you level up and face it, acknowledge, dive into it. Don't be scared at what you're looking at. Maybe it does say death. Fine, let's look at it, but let's not call it anything other than, what is it? Poke our sticks at it. Go, what does it mean to you? What scares you about it? What do you like about it? Okay, well, is that really the answer? I've learned to know. I don't think it will do anyone any good. And there are a lot of beliefs and fallacies that we will place on the meaning of it, but I think 99% of it is untrue, and we're just trying to protect ourselves. But if we look at it and not have our judgments and just go, I am not feeling great right now. I don't have a great relationship, or maybe I have some chemical dependencies. Maybe I have a phobia. Maybe I have a childhood trauma. It sucks. Okay, awesome. You don't want it? Great. I can help you understand it and uncover and not re-traumatize you either.
You know,
I don't re-traumatize you. It's why.
I say the same things only differently. Same concepts though. And any of my life coaching clients will be listening to you saying, that's what Robert says, only you know, different words, but the concepts are the same.
Yes.
And one of the things I also say with my clients is, when I work with you, I have experienced what you've experienced. I didn't read it in a book. I know what it's like to be in chaos. I know what it's like in panic mode, and I know how to get out of it.
Yep.
You know?
Yes. And you have to, I mean, the beginning for me, and tell me if this was for you, but you have to fight hard. You have to look past all the distractions and all the things that other people are saying, and you go, not it, not it. And once you start to find the truth versus falsehood, meaning in my book, which we haven't discussed yet, Becoming Ridiculously Awesome. Who doesn't want that? I have this little book here.
Sure, that's great.
Right, you got the ring light, but so that's that on Amazon. So go and get it. The thing is, I talk about following the ribbon of light. And it was when I was younger, I couldn't understand truth versus falsehood really, because my mom kept shifting her mind all the time. And so I had to finally start understanding who I was, what reality was. I mean, and it sounds really bizarre, but I didn't kind of know what it was. I was so shut down. And slowly but surely, when I would ask the question to the universe of, please help me with this, or what is the answer to this? You know, like the big questions. Certain things in my life would like look a little brighter, or it was kind of like the feeling of, well, take that, just follow that, go around that corner, or go into that bookstore. That book, I don't know why, but I feel I need to grab it. And it's like that there's I think an essence that is throughout everything that we are all part of, connected to, that we are not just isolated in our little bodies and having an experience, that there is a whole network that when you finally resoundingly ask a question, well, then the world will answer it, and you have to follow it. And maybe you will see it. Maybe you'll feel it. Maybe you'll go, wow, I don't want to go to that lecture or that party, or say, you know, go to that coffee with a friend, but there's something that's just nagging. That nagging says, go do it, then do it, and be open for that newness, because I will guarantee it might not be that coffee conversation, but when you step out that door and you turn to the right and you run into someone, you go, oh my goodness, how is this possible? And then it's easy. It's that synchronicity stuff. And you just go, oh, that's a fluke. But if you are smart and you're asking those questions, if you want to make change and growth, the world will always give you what you're looking for. If it's the right thing for you. I'm not talking about, hey, let's just win $1 million. It's like, no, for your soul growth, for your true happiness, follow that and trust yourself. And it's so awesome, because once you start to get into that dynamic, the world can be fun, and you're not a victim anymore. You're like, oh my God, this is like the best video game ever, right? It's really amazing.
One of the ways that when I start with someone that's, you know, had trauma and have PTSD episodes, and one of the things that I start with is I say, you know, in all the episodes that you've had, PTSD episodes that you've had, there is one common denominator that everyone has. And I say, do you know what it is? And they usually say no. And I say, it always ends. And when that's true, because if it didn't, they'd blow up.
Yes.
You know, poof. And when we teach them, when they're calm and relaxed, it creates another pattern, another neural pattern, so that when they're in that episode, they can say, wait a minute, it always ends. I know that. And that's one of the ways I help people come out of that trauma.
That is beautiful.
It's beautiful to watch when you say somebody, you know, it always ends, and they go, oh, it does, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it, you know, and this, you know, it's true, it does.
It does. It reminds me of when I was receiving a session. I was in a session in the very beginning of my little NLP learning, and she said, you know what? And she did it so beautifully. She goes, no one ever died of crying. Because I had been holding things in and so ashamed of crying and so forth. And I go, oh, right? Like no one ever died. It does end. The crying does stop and you will feel better. I go, it rocked my world. I was blown away. And it just reminds me, you saying that to me now, I go, wow, that's really true, to know that it ends. It's like now we can get to work. That is beautifully done.
That's right. It always ends, and it does.
It does.
And I, you know, I encourage people, when you're in that state, just pretend, just say it's going to end. And then I'll say, okay, so you're in panic mode now, but I know you're not going to be in 2 weeks from now. And then is it okay? And they say, and pretty much probably not a week even. And maybe on Wednesday, you won't be in this.
Nice embedded commands there. That's beautifully done.
And maybe like this afternoon, you're out of it. So what I'm doing with them is I'm getting them out of panic mode and triggering, you know, priming the pump in the upper brain so that they can see the future.
Yes. And what you're doing too, if you're not already aware, is that you're allowing their brain to go, how am I going to make that happen? And you're creating the opportunity for the brain to fixate on something else of, oh, wait, I'm not. Oh, so now I'm free. Then the executive functioning pops up. And then so you're
same things, different way of saying it.
Exactly. It's just beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of similar phrases that NLP does. And it's just, and you're allowing the brain to visualize that new way of being.
Because when we are calm and relaxed, we're pretty much the only beings on the planet that can see the future, not like a psychic, but see the future, knowing that if today's Monday, then tomorrow's Tuesday. And if today is Monday, yesterday was Sunday. We're the only ones that know that. And when we get into panic mode, we can't see beyond the moment. That's called being in the now. It's a lousy now to be in, but that is in the now too.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I don't know about you, but I've had an absolutely delightful conversation today. It's been so fun.
Thank you.
How do other people get in touch with you to have more fun? And my sense is your teaching is going to be serious, but fun and happy and positive.
Yes, it is. My guess. It is. So I would love people to go to my website, which is livingyourawesome.com. And you can find me on Facebook of Becoming Ridiculously Awesome. So it's basically those phrases. If you pop them into your search engine, I will populate all over the place. So I'm on Instagram and my website and Facebook, and on YouTube. I'm starting to put more videos now that I have a little bit more time. And so those are the ways. And so I offer of 4 sessions for the cost of 3. I found 4 sessions is really a good, beautiful, solid foundation shift.
4 sessions
for the cost of 3.
Oh, okay. You buy 3 and then you get the graduation
You get 4.
one. Ah,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I
That's
found
generous.
that 4 really, yeah, I want to help people. And
You have that
I don't
look
want,
about you.
thank you. I don't want people to just go, oh, it's too expensive.
Excuse me, what do you want?
What? Yes, I want all of you to come and work with me and be cleansed and cleared so you can have the best life possible, and not wishing that you didn't. I really want people to find their happiness and out of their traumas, because I gotta tell you, there's no one saying that you have to remain in your traumas. You're the only one keeping you there. And when people finally make that bridge, it is so rewarding. You know, I helped one teenager where she was stuttering, she was isolating, she was barely eating, she was practically failing out of school. And after 4 sessions, she had a job. She was getting A's and B's in school. She had friends. She was barely stuttering at all. She was smiling. It was just a completely different person.
Isn't it a glorious feeling when you see that?
Yes, it is. It's just awesome.
It's not like, pounding your chest. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. It's awesome. So go to my website, buy my book, Becoming Ridiculously Awesome. Who doesn't want that? And on my website too, I have your podcast is going to be on there. So people who want to listen to it. Yeah.
And by the way, you may be one day, maybe in the not too distant future, be doing your own podcast. But hey,
I've been hearing some people talk about that, so perhaps that will happen sooner rather than later.
Close. Huh? You're close to it.
Yes, thank you. I love it.
I told you that was a great talk, and it sure was informative. Thank you, Meredith, for coming on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your wonderful personality. And by the way, don't forget to check out Meredith's book, Becoming Ridiculously Awesome. And who wouldn't want that? You can find that on Amazon and pretty much other locations. You can also find Meredith on her website, and you can get that in the information following the recording. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Subscribing gets us more attention, gets us higher up in the ratings. Once again, it gets us attention, and make a comment. It shows people are interacting, and if you make a comment, I'll comment you right back. And you can also find us on iHeart, UK Paranormal Radio Network. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I can't believe all the places that you can find us. And if you would like to find me, Robert Lindsay Milne, on my website, www.robertlindsay.com. I'm going to say goodnight now, but just before I do, please remember, do good, stay safe, and above all, just be kind. Good night, everybody.